evening and welcome to another edition of the Guyana Dialogue. The Guyana Dialogue is organized by a group of diasporans in the United States, Canada, the UK, the Caribbean, and in Guyana. The program is sponsored by well-known philanthropist and businessman, Mr. Dave Narayan of Dave Imports Limited. Today we have our special guest, Mr. Rafeek, who is the president of Guyana Manufacturing Services Agency or Association, and he's also the managing director of Juravilla Homes and Juravilla Wood Products. Today we'll discuss uh, the forestry sector in particular and its value-added products. This is an area that the forestry was almost bankrupt during the 2015 to 2020 period, where the then government could not even afford to pay the salary of workers there. So this sector has been revived under the current administration, and one of the persons or the companies that have helped to revive this sector is Mr. Rafeek Khan from the Juravilla Homes and the Juravilla Wood Products. It's my pleasure now to invite Mr. Khan to give us a brief opening remarks about the state of the forestry sector, and then we'll proceed with other questions and clarifications.
Dr. Tara, thank you again for this opportunity, and to the panelists. It's always a pleasure to be able to
Yeah,
talk about.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
always a pleasure. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll go back to you, and I want to introduce our panelists who are very knowledgeable in the forestry sector. Professor Mudiram Budu, who's a civil and architect by profession, and Dr. Ganga Ramdas, who is an economist and was former head of the Department of Economics and International Relations at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. Now, Mr. Khan, I know you have been busy. We've been trying to reach you before, but now with this election season, and I know all the politicians are very busy with their respective political parties. And over the past week, 2 weeks, there a lot of launching of political parties, political meetings, etc. So there's, so to speak, election fever in Guyana now. Um, but that would not detract from your position in the forestry sector. I overheard a conversation between you and Professor Budu that you will not participate in this year building expo. Probably we can start with that and ask you why this is so, because an important player in the forestry sector and the value-added industry, one would have thought that your please explain or clarify that for us.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you always for this opportunity to be able to express to the viewers what's happening in the forestry sector, especially with value added. The Building Expo is very important. It happens once a year, the International Building Expo. Our company participates and has been participating in it almost every year. This year, we found ourselves in a situation where demand is much more than we can actually supply. So we're building up capacity at the moment and gearing up. It doesn't mean I wouldn't be there. I will be there walking the crowd, encouraging others. As a matter of fact, through the Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association, we have a construction subsector. So we will have at least 50 companies representing the manufacturers sector in the construction arm of the country, with a wide array of products that is happening. It is the fastest growing sector, the construction sector. and we're always looking for opportunities of how we can have our locally made products there. But I'm not by cutting it. I 100% support it. It's just that I want to be able to give our company a bit of a break this particular year in the participation. We normally build an entire house. As a matter of fact, the house in the background of Dr. Ramdas you're seeing there, we built that entire house at an expo one year. So it takes a lot of effort, and I really would like to support those who are participating, encourage visitors to come to Guyana, those who are abroad to come watch, see what's being made locally. The building industry has changed quite a bit. We're having a lot more contemporary buildings. We're seeing a lot more traditional material used in contemporary way. We have, while we have a lot of imported material, we have some semi-manufacturing happening in the country and so on. So I welcome many persons to do participate and learn more. You have the Ministry of Natural Resource is going to be there, Guyana Forestry Commission, that showcases some of the wooden products that is normally produced and sold locally in the country. So I'm not by cutting it. I'm going to be there, and thank you for that question to promote it as well.
Okay, just tell us briefly what products, wood products you produced so far, and
For our company,
oh,
we have been producing almost every product you can think of that is commodity products. So what I mean by commodity, these are products that are in demand worldwide, from flooring, siding, decking, roofing shingles. But one of our main products, the latest product that's given us tremendous success, has been an entire house. So we flat pack an entire home in a container, and we can ship it to any destination in the world. So there's a wide array of products, and we can go through that during our discussions in value added. But in terms of the traditional primary and secondary products within the sector, will be from green hard pilings, squares, rough sawn lumber, dimensional lumber, dress lumber. These are basic type of timber products that doesn't require a whole lot of sophistication in terms of manufacturing. You're converting a log into various types of products that are used for structural and engineering application, not just locally in Guyana, but internationally. And as we go into the conversation, I can talk to you more about the other value added products that exist.
okay. Before I pass on to Professor Budu, how your operations are integrated with the, sorry, how your operation is integrated with the climate, with the climate change that is taking place. We have the 2030, well, the PNC call it green paper, and the PPP is what LCD 230 they call it, I believe, the PPP. How your operations integrate with the LCD or the green revolution?
Yes, the LCDS, the low carbon strategy that the government of Guyana has, that strategy clearly identifies how the country is going to be growing and building in every sector, but in a way that sustains the environment. Now, it is important for anyone to know when you're utilizing a timber product, and especially an entire house that is produced locally in that country, any country as a matter of fact, the carbon footprint of that house is significantly reduced from the point of manufacturing to installation of that home. We're not importing major building components. The emissions is going to be low because we're not producing concrete and steel to be able to produce our homes. So we're utilizing something that is local but not just a forest that is locally harvested here, but we are utilizing a sustainably harvested forest in terms of manufacturing our homes. And for those who may not know, timber sequesters carbon. It's a great way of absorbing carbon and healthier for the environment. If you live in a concrete home, comparing to a timber home, the carbon always releases into the atmosphere, but timber captures carbon, locks it, and stores it away. So it's important for those to know that when you're producing a timber made product, not only is it good for the environment in terms of your home, but it is also good for the carbon footprint when it comes to manufacturing and producing that product in the local country. Take, for example, a roofing product. We have a wooden shingles that we use Wallaba to make an entire roof that we ship around the world. So we're taking it, we can even produce your roofing material utilizing timber made and produced in Guyana.
All right. Thank you very much. Professor Bodu, over to you.
Rafeek, what is the economic impact of forestry sector in Guyana?
At present, the forestry sector caters on about 25,000 persons
Mhm,
is as a result of Guyana's forestry sector.
mhm,
And this is stemming from those involved from cutting of trees, pre-harvest planning, trucking, and processing of the timber. So it is important. It's an excellent way of promoting skills, developing skills, and further improving the livelihoods, especially for those who have been depending on it for generations and generations. So it is a significant contributor when it comes to labor for the country. It
mhm,
also represents 4% of Guyana's GDP, and I expect that to be growing in coming years.
mhm,
Um, it has grown from the last 2 to 3 years. It was about 3% or 3.5%. Last year it closed at about 4%. So we're expecting that growth to continue as businesses continue to invest in value added for the forestry sector.
mhm. You know, you know, Dr. Singh pointed out that during the last government, the forestry sector suffered significantly. I saw some figures bashed around that in export in 22 was about 34 million US dollars, and in 23, 86 million US dollars. Does that look correct to you?
Yes, it's correct. What has happened in the past, we would have had a lot more export of logs.
Mhm,
And it is important in order to grow a country's GDP, you want to have your logs processed in country. It
mhm,
creates jobs, it helps your GDP growth, and
mhm,
it really improves the entire construction sector when you're producing materials locally.
mhm,
So so in the past we would have had production of a major as much as 50% of our production has been exported internationally. Presently, what you see happening with last year, we had 450,000 cubic meters produced in logs. Of that, only 10% has been exported in form of logs. All the rest has been converted into value-added products in the country. So we're extremely proud as a forestry sector to be able to produce for the building out of this economy and for our export. And it's important to highlight that forestry sector is a key contributor for foreign currency earnings. Outside of oil and gas, gold used to be the number one foreign currency earner, and then timber. So timber
mhm,
is the only manufactured product that brings in the highest foreign currency earnings, even though our exports is still a bit low and it's going to be increasing. So it goes to show how significant the forestry sector plays to the country.
Mhm. Now, you say export is low. So what government policies impact the forestry sector? So,
The
go
yes,
ahead.
so I must say one of the reasons why export is low is because demand is significantly high in the country. And demand is high in every single sector of economy, especially for value added. So with hotels that are being built, hospitals that are being built, thousands of homes every year, from affordable homes to luxury homes, there is demand of products. When you look in your home, from doors to flooring to molding, cabinets, if you're not seizing the opportunity in this sector to produce, you're missing it. You're missing an opportunity for revenues. So, furthermore, there have been significant incentives that has been given from the government to help promote this sector even further. So those in manufacturing, especially for the forestry sector, there's no VAT on building and construction material. VAT has been removed. There's no there's duty has been reduced or removed from fuel, so we don't have any taxes on fuel, even though energy costs is still a bit of a challenge and is going to be coming down. These are some fiscal incentives that would have helped the sector. Also, what we would have had inputs to manufacturing for the forestry sector, machinery, equipment, packaging equipment, and so on. Taxes have been completely removed from those items. Companies have the opportunity to apply for these waivers, and if you're paying VAT on your input of money to manufacturing, those duties and taxes, you can reclaim your VAT if you're paying VAT for any input to manufacturing. So there's no, I would say, what else could we ask as private sector for the government to do in order to make an enabling environment for business to succeed? And that will be two things. One, which is being worked on, hopefully lower energy costs in years, in let's say within a year or two, the most. And then of course, the infrastructure costs. So raw material movement from the hinterlands of Guyana to the factories has been a major hindrance. But now with roads being built across the country, not only in cities, but across the hinterland and far reach regions that you have to drive in the past for sometimes 1 to 2 days just to get your products to point. Now a truck sometimes can get to its location within 3 hours. So trucking costs, logistics costs is being reduced as a result of that. And we're going to be advocating as private sector for even further expansion of roads and development, because we're separated by 3 major rivers. So crossing bridges, using marine transportation, all of those are impact to the cost of manufacturing. But most definitely, we are thankful as private sector and the Guyana Manufacturing Services Association for the many benefits that we would have received. We are grateful for that. We would have had incentives for ATVs working in the forest. This year, actually, we are hearing for next year, we're going to be hopefully expecting 4-wheel drive vehicles to be reduced as well. We have the revolving fund that was in place last year, 2 years ago. That was a $900 million fund to help small businesses or SMEs, small, medium-sized businesses to grow. I heard those things are going to be more impactful in the coming year. So we are tremendously grateful, and we're looking forward to seeing another dynamic year in 2026 as businesses prepare to seize the opportunities in value-added manufacturing products.
How much is the foreign direct investment in the forestry sector? You have any figures that you want to tell our viewers about?
Yeah, I will perhaps be giving you a wild guess at that. But it is in the millions. Look, let's say we pick 20 major companies in the country that are producing large scale manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
I can pick 20 companies that would have invested in the last, let's say, 5 years. And those companies would have invested each of them an average of 3 million US dollars of businesses that they would have already had in place. So there's a significant amount of investment being made in the forestry sector. And the forestry sector is highly capital intensive, especially if you're doing logging. So small companies are investing as much as $200,000 all the way up to $1 million to $2 million to $3 million. Large logging companies, have seen some of them invested as much as $5 million last year. So it's a significant amount of investment that is in the sector. Now, you have about 300 sawmills in the country. I'm just talking about 20 companies I can think of within the last 5 years that would have invested aggressively preparing for the market.
Mm-hmm. So are these people comfortable in investing in Guyana? And if so, what are the key factors that make them comfortable?
The key factor is an enabling environment to do business in Guyana. As a foreigner looking to Guyana and coming to do business in Guyana, sometimes it could be intimidating. But I must say, if you have a good lawyer, you have a good accountant, and you follow the process, they can help expedite establishment of business in Guyana. So an enabling environment is important, with the legal system and framework in place, with opening up a bank account, opening up a business and getting a business license, especially through Guyana Forestry Commission. Anyone from any country in the world can open a business in Guyana. Once you get a proper, legitimate accountant and lawyer, it's not difficult. Now, for confidence now, in gaining confidence in investing money in this economy, I normally say anyone who takes too long in doing a feasibility study in this country, they would miss the opportunity. Many times I speak to investors and they say they have to wait and look at it, study it, think about it, pray about it. You look around this country and look all across the length and breadth of Guyana. For every single sector, there's double-digit growth. The country is building out in every area. So by the time you finish your feasibility study and you take time, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you would have missed the opportunity. So I would say doing business in Guyana, while it may seem a bit intimidating as a small country coming from a foreign land, it is not difficult. In terms
political stability is a very key component of this. Can you comment on this?
Yes, absolutely. For my company, we've been around for 24 years. We've been there, the ups and downs. And I must say, Guyana has been stable, even though you might be hearing the news, this, that, and the other, and things get a bit tense sometimes, election. And it's obvious, it's expected, because people are there fighting for their views and their rights and looking for their incentives in businesses and so on. But I have never had in my company, and many of our colleagues in the sector, has had hindrances when it comes to political interference of our business. As a matter of fact, last year, we would have seen, well, not just last year, in the last 3 to 4 years, the government has been promoting businesses so much that sometimes businesses are not capable of even entertaining the businesses when demand comes. So the government has been an amazing facilitator of businesses in Guyana. In terms of trade promotion, everywhere our president goes, he's always been talking about our sectors. He said to businesses, get your business plan ready, be prepared, be ready. So I would like to say there's no political interference when it comes to private sector companies doing business in Guyana. We even have our legal system. If you want to take any business or anyone to court, our legal system framework has been updated to help expedite cases, because when you're doing business, you want to make sure that there's a good legal system in place. When you're doing business, you want to make sure you can export your product and our shipping is in place. While there's some limitations with large vessels coming into the country for export, we can export from Guyana to almost every country in the world. So we don't have limitations when it comes to doing business in Guyana. When it comes to government intervention, we need to have market protection. Of course, right now you're hearing about the possibilities of increased duties and taxes because of the US tariffs. But I believe and I'm confident that our government will stand and protect the businesses to lowering import taxes anywhere we ship our products.
All right.
Let me pass you on to
uh,
Dr. Ramdas now.
no, let's. I'll say, let's take a break now.
Mhm.
Asif, we need. Okay, before we go over to Dr. Ganga, I just want to ask you, Mr. Kanwan, you have a rough idea of the average weekly wages for worker in the forestry sector, either weekly or monthly?
On the daily wages on the average is between $8,000 to $10,000 Guyana dollars per day. Many of your viewers are overseas, so that will be between 40 to 50 US dollars per day in terms of wages. And we would have seen that increased within the last 5 years to about 30% increase in wages across not just our sector, many
Okay,
sectors.
thank you. Dr. Ganga, over to you.
Okay, welcome, Mr.
Dr.
Rafeek
Ganga.
Khan. Nice to see you again. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Uh, you have a quarter of a century knowledge on this sector, so that is very welcoming to our listeners, and also to help me to understand much better about the forestry sector. Now, I've been looking at total logs cut, and also manufacturing sawn logs or sawn wood. Those are the official statistics. So what I found was in 2024, sawn logs or sawn wood was 13%. So how do we account for the destination of the 87%? Can you explain what happens with the other logs?
This is 13. How much percent you're saying that it was sawn in country based on production?
13%. So it's both. It appears low, but it's also an opportunity. You can look at it both ways because there
Yeah.
is room for growth.
Well, from my numbers and that I've looked at in terms of conversion of logs to lumber, the production that has been in country has been 90% consumed in country, which means 10, and I'm speaking of, let's say, within the last year, right? So 10% of our total production in the forest was exported, and of that 10% is going to be logs. So I'm not too sure how do we equate the numbers, but I must tell you that when you're looking at value added, maybe a significant of that amount is going to pilings, because pilings, poles and piles, is the actual tree, which then goes into foundation piles. So the government of Guyana is a major consumer when it comes to infrastructural work that is being done in countries. So over the last few years, you would have seen a significant demand for piling, green heart piling, Kakarali piles, and utility poles. So those perhaps may be categorized as logs. But outside of that, everything else is converted into sawn lumber, whether it be squares, whether it be big planks, or dimensional lumber for house. Revetment has been utilizing a lot, bridges, ports, revetment, piers, and so on, has been utilizing a lot of timber in the sector. So I would like to say somehow or the other, maybe perhaps the numbers skewed a bit to show that those logs produced actually went into application but not sawn into lumber, and that's probably why you may be seeing it a bit different.
Yeah, so that's good news that the government is making use of the hardwood, especially for wharves and foundations and piles to build bridges and so on. Now, on the other side of exports, um, how do we explain the destination of our exports in terms of the logs cut, the sawn wood, and I will include plywood. So, where are the destinations? Which countries import our stuff?
Okay, so I'll start first with value added. So plywood is a major value added product in the country. There's one company producing plywood, and that's been doing that for over 50 years. So that is consumed 100% in Guyana. Because the demand has been so large, the government of Guyana has suggested to the company that we do not export our plywood, we keep it for local consumption. So there's no export for plywood at this stage. The other major export is roofing shingles. We produce Wallaby shingles, and that is exported to, I will say, every major tourist destination in the world. Luxury resorts, villas from the Pacific Islands, the Middle East, the Caribbean islands, even right in the United States, when you have these coastal areas, you have wooden shingles are being used in the roof. So those products goes into those destinations. In terms of green heart goes a lot into civil works when it comes to government projects. That goes into the UK, into the Netherlands, into the Middle East, United States, especially New York. Green heart is being used for marine pilings and timbers, bridge building and construction. For those who may not know, the Brooklyn Bridge, pedestrian bridge, is made of green heart. The Staten Island Ferry has green heart piling. So these sustainable, durable hardwoods have been used in countries across the globe. About 20% of our exports goes to the United States. About 20% goes to Europe, and another 10 to 15% goes to other countries, whether it's the Middle East or the Pacific Islands, New Zealand, and so on. And then the Caribbean will take a bulk of our demand. Caribbean is about 30% of our exports from Guyana. So we have a significant amount of spread and reach across the globe, from structural engineering application all the way to finished applications such as roof, flooring, siding, decking, and so on.
No, that's good news, but there is a curiosity factor as well, and that has to do with what you had mentioned earlier, that you're planning to export an entire modular home. How would that impact on the supply side from our forests?
It's going to do good for our forests. Here's why. Presently, not presently, in the past, persons would have cut a tree and only cut that log to a consumer demand that's coming to us and say, I only want this size of wood. And every homeowner, every building construction, they don't normally purchase the same size of lumber. It all varies, and it has hindered our sector tremendously because you end up wasting that tree and you're only getting about, let's say, 40% recovery from that log, sometimes even 35%, because much of it goes wasted when you're not doing value added. Now, when we're doing an entire house, we have the option to now programming that log to maximize its yield towards making parts of that home. So a small piece of lumber, such as 1 by 4 by 4 feet long, can go towards a windowsill in a house or a border around the door, or flooring. So we can use short pieces, small pieces of lumber when you're producing a house, because we have to design that house and cater for every size of log or lumber that comes out of that log. And to take it a step further, our forest has over 1,000 species. About 21 species have been identified for commercial use. Now, if you don't sell an entire, when you sell an entire house, and you produce an entire house, you can use a variety of species depending on its application. So if you're using for the outside, you're going to pick species that are durable, that will be resistant and resilient to the environment. When you're using internal timber, you have more flexibility. So my point is that when you're producing a house, you're actually maximizing the yield of that log, maximizing the use of our precious forests, and able to get a higher value for the products that you're producing. It's a win-win. It's a win for the forest. It's a win for employment. It's even a win for consumer, because now that consumer is getting a wide array of mix from our beautiful forests of sustainable timber products.
That's very useful. That's excellent. Um, just 2 points as we go along. Bank of Guyana infrastructure, the foundations, has 60 miles of green heart logs put there. So infrastructural works, that was very good. And I suppose when we build our bridges, we had bridges, a bridge built at my father's house with green heart squared logs, and they had to get the monkey and they had Derek to put it down there. Um, the other thing is the species. It augurs well for our species Kabakali house, and Wamara walls, and so on. So it's good that you're making use of all the parts of a tree. I'm
Mhm.
very impressed with that, because I have an experience with MacDoom sawmills, where you would go to Mr. Anderson and order the sills for your house, and he will cut the trees. He will tell you, well, I can't find a lengthy tree like that, but you have to wait on his schedule and so on. So that's very good. I think I'm impressed with that. So I will ask you to just move on. Let's move on with the other Dr. Tara. Can you can you
All
move
right.
forward?
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Um, let's go and talk about the value-added sector. But before we go to that, plenty species that are usable. But what are the five or six more common woods that you use in your value-added and furniture business, etc.?
Yes, we have at least 10 species that I would say are constantly being produced in Guyana. Those species, well, the top five, most persons may know it who's from Guyana, and that is greenheart, kapkali, mora, wallaba, baramali, and purple heart. We also have other species that are commonly used, and they classified it as hardwoods in general. That's Toronero, Shibadan, Simarupa, Moneridan. Now, these are species that we find has been able to easy to access, but also more commercially available, and also proven the test of times when it comes to end use applications. So those are a few variety of species, but there are many more. There's at least a dozen more lesser used or lesser known species that the government of Guyana is looking to promote and encourage. As a matter of fact, central housing and planning has been that's our construction the arm of the government, the housing arm of the government. They have been promoting and encouraging lesser use species when it comes to building and construction. Take for example foundation piles. You would have heard greenheart piles used a lot into foundation piles for almost not almost every major hotels in the country and multi-story buildings. But now they're using kakarali piles. Many persons probably would not have heard of that, and it's one of the most abundant species. So we have been using lesser used species, and we want to keep promoting and doing more and more research on lesser used species and encouraging our consumers not just to specify just the popular species.
Okay. Now, when you utilize these species, what about the idea of reforestation? Are they difficult to reforest to plant back similar trees?
And that's a good question. So in terms of replanting, so there is a replanting reforestation plan in place in the country, and a lot of that goes towards the mining sector because you have to reclaim the land that has been excavated and try to do plantation type of forest. Lots of research is being done for bamboo plantation. Guyana would have done a pine plantation, but I must say, in terms of harvesting trees, when we cut a tree from the forest, we do selective harvesting. So the way we cut a tree is it has to be a certain diameter, it has to be a certain distance from each other. So we don't clear cut. So in other words, there's no need to replant trees that you're harvesting because how it's done, it is done in a cycle. Let's say this a cycle of a 25-year cycle, and there's as much as a 60-year cycle. So if you cut a block in that forest and then you go back into that block 25 years from now, you will see a mature forest because you're only cutting a certain amount of cubic meter within that block according to your management plan, and you're cutting only a certain amount of species in that block. So it's very limited cutting is being done. There's no clear cutting at all. So you will see seedlings from other tree that is falling in the ground and planting and coming up naturally. For example, building roads, you cannot just take your tractor and push down roads and extract a tree from the forest. You actually have to have a skid trail, and that tractor cannot, or that skidder cannot damage other trees, just wildly pushing trees down in order to access a particular tree in the forest. So it's highly regulated in terms of what you cut, how you cut, and how much you cut. and you
Mhm.
have to be able to justify your production. So we are pleased to see that Guyana, of all forests in the world, we are extremely pleased to see Guyana has a rigorous plan in terms of enforcing sustainability and protecting our forests. So there's no need to do plantation forests unless an investor comes and say you want to use savanna lands and start perhaps a teak plantation or some other type of plantation forest. And that's an opportunity here. But you will fly over Guyana's forest and you will not see an opening in the forest because of logging. The only opening you will see is where the roads are.
Mhm. Okay. The forestry. Let's talk about that a little. What are some of the products you can produce with locally grown timber?
Local species that I would have already mentioned, the products that are low hanging fruit products, products that consumer will buy if it's available, and again without doing feasibility study. Doors. Every Guyanese has known that Guyana doors has withstood the test of times for generations, over 100 years. You perhaps would have heard of Porpahar doors. Sorry. So doors to me is a very basic product that we can invest in and increase it in terms of production. Molding, or they call it skirting in the country. Well, whether it's base molding or crown molding, that is another product that is simple, easy to produce, that is commonly in demand in every single home that is being constructed. Let's move to cabinets. Now I'm talking about the bare essentials that is required for every single home that is being built. We don't have to import these products. We can produce these products. And we need to produce more because we are importing because of the pace of our industry and the growth of it. So cabinets, kitchen cabinets, basic products that you can use our hardwoods and medium density wood, is not just all totally hard, and make kitchen cabinets. Now let's move to basic furniture. We grew up in Guyana. We have had and seen our wood used for school desks and chairs. Those again are basic products for our school that is in growing in demand and increasing in capacity in the country. So once again, we're talking about basic, high in demand products that are constantly growing. Now, the hotels that are being built, beds, tables, chairs, now you're going into a further higher value that you want to produce those products for international compliance. And that is where we have to lift our standards to be able to convince the hotels, whether it's a Marriott or a Hilton or any big chain of hotel, they're going to have standards. So this is where we want to encourage our manufacturers to be able to adopt to the international standards and produce and seize the opportunity to produce to those major projects that are building out in the country. The other products that you have, of course, is going to be siding. So every house growing up, many homes you see wood siding or cladding. That is a demand not just in Guyana, but is across the region in the Caribbean. Then you have flooring. I've seen a lot of people are moving away from flooring because they don't have enough suppliers in country for hardwood flooring. So once again, these are premium products that will last a lifetime and beyond, and has proven the test of times in terms of application. And of course, you have our homes that we're building, and there's room for many companies to do affordable homes and do homes made out of our wood. So there's a wide array of essentials of products that goes into a home. I'm not even talking about picture frame. Let's think about that for example. Broomsticks. Our wood waste can go into making broomsticks, axe handles. We can even have a cottage industry that are taking our waste and making some of these products, right? The I would like to also add to that to say our waste when it comes to sawdust could even go into value added products such as briquettes. And I believe you're going to be seeing that happening in coming years, where there's a study right now through the Guyana Forestry Commission to start utilizing wood waste in making briquettes in our sector. So there are many products that you can look around your house and ask yourself, could it be made here? And then invest in those products.
Time is run out. Professor Budu, we have a last question, and then the final question to Dr. Ganga. Go ahead,
Let me make a few comments before I ask a question. There are
Professor
two
Budu.
questions I have, but a comment
Yeah.
that you made earlier.
Uh,
You mentioned that the government is now strongly supporting the use of a lesser known species of wood. You're aware of some of the work I did in the early 80s, calling on the government to stop using green heart in housing and using these lesser known species.
Yes.
So I'm glad that is now being pushed by the government. And just another further comment that Professor Ramdas made. I worked on the foundation with the Bank of Guyana and the Pegasus Hotel, right? Designing some of those islands.
Wow.
Now, how much of a tree is utilized?
So depending on the product, presently on the average, I will say about 60% of that tree is utilized. But in the past, it would have been less. But based upon the variety of products I would have mentioned, you have at least 60% of that tree is utilized in country.
Yeah. What about the branches and the leaves and that kind of thing? Any use make of those?
Not to my knowledge, those are left in the forest, and it adds to the biodegradable aspect in terms of the vegetation and so on. So the crown of the tree drops there and is naturally come into compost for other type of growth.
A lot of broomsticks have been made there with all those branches. Anyway, now the last question.
Okay, Dr.
The
Ganga.
last question I want to raise. I believe you're familiar with the building
Dr.
regulation,
Ganga.
code requirements, and
Yes.
standards.
Okay.
In Florida.
I have a curiosity questions regarding foreign loggers. Do you think they are under our regulations and they follow examples like what you have outlined for us, or they do something totally different? What's your opinion on that?
Oh, I don't have an opinion. I have a fact. They must operate to standard. As a matter of fact, companies are very scared of the Guyana Forestry Commission, that is the regulator of our forest. You have, through the Guyana Forestry Commission, and I'm privileged to be in the board of the GFC, that's why I can speak to this. There's about 500 employees employed by the Guyana Forestry Commission. A significant amount of those employees are forest rangers policing our forest throughout the length and breadth of Guyana. Every truckload of logs that are moved to any major forest gate are being inspected. So you cannot cut a tree without the permission of the Guyana Forestry Commission. And that tree, each tree is being tagged by a barcode and a GPS reading in the forest that you can go back and do a stump inspection and trace the legality. So whether you're a foreign company or a local company, big or small, the government of Guyana will catch you if there is illegal logging, and you can get fined significantly or shut down.
All right. Your final
Okay.
comment, Dr. Ganga.
Oh, well, again, the destination of the logs, is it squared logs or round logs that are shipped out by the foreign loggers? What
The
do they, what's their preference?
Well, if it's most of the exporter logs goes to either India or China, where they convert it into products, so that would be wrong logs. Squares only go towards hydraulic and engineering applications. If it's going as a square, it's actually going to be used as a square at the end use application. It's not being reprocessed into something else. So it's either round or dimensional lumber.
But what happens to the other parts of the trees? Do they account for that? Like slabs and scantlings and other things like that. What they do with that?
Well, in those other countries, they would have other valuable use because, as you know, China and India will even use the bark of not even the bark, the sap of the wood for making toothpicks or making spoons or forks and all types of stuff. But I believe there is greater use of the wastage of the parts of the log when it goes into other countries because they have to pay for freight and shipping of every cubic meter of that log that's going to that country. So they will have to find use of it. I don't think much of it will go wasted.
Mm. All
Okay,
right.
thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. Yeah, we have had a very interesting and fascinating conversation with you, and we'll ask you to take a few minutes to make your concluding remarks.
My concluding remark is quite simple. I would like our Guyanese and even the diaspora that is coming back to build homes in Guyana embrace your locally manufactured product. We have many amazing companies in this country. And if you're buying something locally, don't expect to pay the cheapest price because our local product is of high value, especially our timber, when comparing to pine lumber and so on. So the housing construction market is growing. There's a lot of companies and persons coming back to live in Guyana. Demand your locally made product and support locally made products across our sectors. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, and we thank Professor Mudu and Dr. Ganga Ramdas for being a panelist on this program. All of them are, as you can see, all of them are knowledgeable or have some knowledge in the forestry sector. And most of all, you have shown an in-depth knowledge of the operations of the forestry sector. And now that you're a member of the Forestry Commission, Mr. James Singh just passed away. Can you say who take over from him? Who's
So
the
yes, the new commissioners is Dr. Edward Gobert. Sorry, Mr. Edward Goberdan, and he has been at the Guyana Forestry Commission for about 2 decades there. But Mr. James Singh was a tremendous loss to the forestry sector. He has been a
yeah,
scholar. He's been an impactful person to this country. So we
yeah,
have been mourning
yeah,
his
oh yeah,
loss.
yeah. Our sympathy goes, condolence goes out to the family, whom we know very well. As a matter of fact, they were my neighbors.
Hmm.
Um, Anyhow, we thank you very much for your knowledge and sharing us with us and our viewers. And we hope to get you again back soon. We look forward to the 2025 Bill in another couple of weeks. And gentlemen, thank you. The panelists, Dr. Ganga, Professor Buru.
Thank you. Thank you, Rafeek.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.